The first morning at Fort Breckenridge was colder than any winter she'd known, not because of the weather, but because of the stairs. Recruits moved across the parade ground in lines, boots slamming the concrete in rhythm, breath turning into thin clouds in the brisk dawn. Among them walked Alyssa Hart, 23 years old, ponytail tucked tight, uniform sharp enough to cut through stone. She had trained alone for years, preparing for this moment. She knew how to fight. She knew how to endure. What she didn't know, what no one could have warned her about, was how heavy the weight of silent judgment could feel. She didn't flinch when an instructor yelled at her. She didn't blink during inspection. But she couldn't ignore the whispers drifting behind her boots. "Princess can't even lift her pack. Try not to cry today, sweetheart. Bet she quits by lunch." Alyssa kept walking. The military had been her dream since she was a child, growing up in a small apartment above her father's auto shop. She had posters of naval ships on the walls, used her savings to buy old fitness manuals, and spent weekends practicing ocean swims along the coast. She didn't come here to be accepted. She came here to earn her place. But the second she stepped into the barracks that morning, she realized she wasn't just fighting to prove herself. She was fighting the expectations of every man who doubted her. The worst of them was Corporal Mason Brigg, a tall, broad Marine recruit with a voice loud enough to rattle lockers. He didn't whisper. He didn't hide. He made sure everyone heard him when he leaned against the doorway and smirked at her. "Try not to cry, Princess," he said, tilting his head like he was speaking to a child. "Basics only going to get harder." The other recruits laughed. Not all of them meant it. Some were boys caught between wanting to fit in and wanting to do the right thing. But in a place like this, silence always felt safer than courage. Alyssa paused, looked him straight in the eyes, and gave a small nod, not of agreement, but of acknowledgement. She knew bullies. She had trained for bullies her entire life. "Noted," she said, calm, unshaken. That irritated him more than any insult could have. Later that morning, during the endurance run, the recruits were ordered to sprint 3 miles in full gear. Sweat poured down faces, boots thudded against dirt, and the sun climbed slowly through the gray sky. Alyssa ran silently, breathing through her nose, her pace steady and controlled. Halfway through, one of the recruits, a lanky guy barely out of high school, fell behind. His chest heaved, his legs wobbled. Mason and his friends noticed, and slowed down just enough to harass him. "Pick it up, rookie. Want us to carry you. Maybe Princess can give you a piggyback." A few of them laughed. Alyssa didn't. She slowed her pace to match the struggling recruit, even as Mason watched, even as whispers built around them. She knew what it felt like to be alone. She wouldn't let someone else drown the way others once let her. "Deep breaths," she told the boy quietly. "Match my pace, one step at a time." He nodded, too tired to speak. Mason shouted from up ahead, "Trying to save your little boyfriend." Alyssa ignored him and kept running. By the end of the run, she and the recruit crossed the finish line together. Not first, not last, but steady. The drill instructor, a man carved out of stone and gravel, raised a brow at the unexpected pairing. "You," he pointed at Alyssa. "Why'd you slow down?" She answered without hesitation, "Sir, because we finish as a unit, sir." For a split second, the instructor's expression softened, just a flicker. But Mason saw it, and it burned him more than failure. Inside the barracks after training, he brushed past her shoulder harder than necessary. "You think you're some kind of hero," he muttered. "You're not gonna last here." Alyssa didn't respond. She didn't have to. Her silence said more than any comeback. She wasn't there to win arguments. She was there to become something bigger, something they never expected. That night, while the others mocked her from the bunks, Alyssa sat on the floor, polishing her boots, jaw tight, mind focused. Their words were noise. Their doubts were fuel. They had no idea who she was, no idea what she was capable of, but they were about to learn, and it would start with proving them wrong. The next months at Fort Breckenridge tested every muscle, every nerve, and every belief Alyssa Hart had ever held about strength. If part 1 was about surviving their judgment, part 2 was about surviving herself. The instructors didn't care who laughed at her. They didn't care who doubted her, mocked her, or whispered behind her back. They cared about performance. They cared about grit. And grit was something Alyssa had in endless supply. Her days started at 0, 4s, 0, when the rest of the recruits were still fumbling out of their bunks. She would slip out into the cold air, feel the ground beneath her boots, and begin her personal regimen: push-ups, kettlebell swings, and timed sprints around the perimeter fence. She didn't do it to show off. She did it because she knew Special Forces training wasn't just a dream. It was her destination, and she was behind, not physically. Physically, she could keep up with almost anyone. But the whispers, the constant mocking, and the expectation that she'd fail had put her under a spotlight. Every mistake she made weighed 10 times heavier than everyone else's. If a recruit dropped a sandbag, he might get a warning. If Alyssa did, she knew the whole group would shout, "Princess messed up again." It wasn't fair, but she never expected fairness, only opportunity. The turning point came during the combat fitness assessment, the toughest test of Phase 1. It was a long obstacle course built to simulate battlefield conditions. Wall climbs, low crawls under wire, rope ascents, sprint, drags with weighted dummies, and a final 800-meter full gear run. Most recruits dreaded it. Alyssa lived for it. When the whistle blew, she launched forward with the rest of them, legs pumping, heartbeat steady. She cleared the wall with a smooth vault, just as she had practiced for months. Mason Brigg, the loudest voice of her tormentors, shot her a glare as she passed him. "Don't get cocky," he snarled. She didn't answer. Her breath was too valuable to waste on ego. The rope climb was where things changed. Halfway up, a recruit above her lost his grip. He didn't fall, but his foot slipped, throwing his balance and sending him into a panic. He froze, clinging desperately to the rope. The instructors barked at him to continue, but fear had locked him in place. The entire line behind him stopped. Groans echoed along the course. Mason yelled, "Move, we don't have all day." Some recruits jeered, some shook their heads. No one helped. Alyssa did. She gripped the rope, leaned back for leverage, and called up to him. "I'm right here. Breathe. Shift your weight to your right leg. Trust me." He looked down at her, terrified, ashamed, but something about her voice steadied him. Within seconds, he adjusted his grip, regained balance, and continued upward. Alyssa followed, fast and controlled. They cleared the obstacle, the line moved again, and for the first time, a few recruits, only a few, looked at her with respect rather than doubt. But Mason, he looked at her with something else entirely. Fear. He was starting to understand she wasn't just surviving, she was rising. By the end of Phase 1, Alyssa ranked in the top 10 of the entire company. Not top 10 women, top 10, period. Her endurance was unmatched, her discipline unwavering, her focus sharper than a blade. The instructors noticed, quietly, professionally, and when names were posted for advanced selection, the room buzzed like a hive of nervous energy. Alyssa scanned the list. She didn't react when she saw her name, Hart Alyssa J. Qualified, she simply nodded. She expected this. Mason, standing nearby, stared at her, jaw tight, hands balled into fists. "You think you deserve that spot," he said, stepping close enough for his breath to hit her cheek. Alyssa turned. "I earned it," she said. Simple, direct. He scoffed, but he couldn't argue. The next phase was held at the Naval Special Warfare Center, the place recruits whispered about at night like some mythical land of legends. It was where dreams went to die, or destinies were forged, the place where boys became SEALs, or broke trying. Alyssa arrived with her duffel on her shoulder, standing on the edge of the vast training grounds. The Pacific wind whipped through her hair, bringing the scent of salt and challenge. She looked out at the obstacle fields, the endless coastline, the cold gray water where countless candidates had quit during Hell Week. And she smiled. This was what she trained for, what she bled for, what she dreamed of since she was 9 years old. The mocking didn't matter now. The whispers didn't matter now. She deserved to be here. And soon everyone, including Mason, would understand exactly why. Hell Week had arrived, the week every Navy SEAL candidate feared, respected, and silently craved. It wasn't about physical endurance anymore. It was about mental fortitude, teamwork, and the ability to stay calm when everything around you seemed designed to break you. Alyssa Hart stood at the edge of the Pacific, waves crashing against the rocky shore, wind whipping her soaked hair across her face. The sun had barely risen, casting long shadows across the sand. Around her, dozens of recruits, including Mason Brigg, shivered and cursed, but Alyssa's expression was calm, almost serene. She remembered the whispers from months ago, "Try not to cry, princess." She smiled faintly. Those words didn't sting anymore. They were fuel. The drill instructors, carved from years of discipline and authority, barked orders that echoed over the surf. The recruits had to navigate a series of tactical exercises, swimming through frigid surf, carrying weighted dummies, performing mock raids, and coordinating complex maneuvers, all under constant scrutiny. Mason ran ahead, chest puffed up with bravado, confident he could assert dominance. But Alyssa had a plan. She moved with precision, reading the field, anticipating his moves, staying calm while he rushed recklessly. During a mock mission, the candidates had to infiltrate a defensive perimeter manned by other recruits. The rules were strict: no weapons, only strategy and tactical skill. It was chaos, a dance of stealth, awareness, and agility. Alyssa's group approached a hill where 6 Marines were holding simulated positions. Each one expected her to hesitate, to falter, to give them an opening, but Alyssa moved like a shadow, silent and decisive. She signaled her team, and one by one, they maneuvered into position. In less than 2 minutes, Alyssa had taken down all 6 Marines. Not a single strike, not a single shout, only outsmarted them with superior awareness, timing, and precision. The instructors paused, watching with silent approval. Even Mason froze, realization dawning on him. The girl they mocked, the one they underestimated, had outmaneuvered every one of them with skill and intellect. Alyssa didn't gloat. She didn't need to. The mission wasn't about proving them wrong. It was about proving herself right. Every move was calculated, every breath controlled, every glance purposeful. This was what Navy SEALs did: execute flawlessly under pressure. When the exercise ended, Alyssa stood at the center of the training ground, drenched in sweat and salt water, chest heaving but calm, looking around at the stunned faces. Some of her fellow candidates now saw her in a new light, the same light the instructors had quietly admired for months. Mason approached, shoulders tense, jaw tight. You actually did it," he said, voice low, almost muttering, "all 6, without a scratch." Alyssa met his eyes, calm, steady, unyielding. "I did what I trained for," she said simply. "Nothing more, nothing less." He didn't reply, and that was fine. No apology, no insult, just recognition in silence. Sometimes that was the most a person could hope for. By the end of Hell Week, Alyssa's name had become synonymous with resilience and tactical brilliance. She had survived ocean swims, ice, cold nights, exhaustion, and doubt. not just her own, but that of everyone who had ever underestimated her. When the final rankings were posted, she wasn't just a SEAL candidate. She was a symbol, proof that dedication, intelligence, and unbreakable spirit could overcome every obstacle. As she stood on the shore, looking out at the horizon, the wind tugging at her uniform, Alyssa felt something she hadn't in months: peace. The bullying, the mockery, the whispers, they were gone. They had been replaced by something stronger: respect earned, a mission accomplished, and the quiet satisfaction of becoming exactly who she was meant to be. The sun rose fully now, spilling gold across the surf. Alyssa lifted her head, feeling the weight of months of training lift just slightly. Ahead of her lay countless missions, challenges, and battles. But for now, she had won her first, most important fight, herself. And for those who doubted her, they had learned a lesson that would stay with them forever. Never underestimate the quiet strength of a woman determined to rise.